The giant creature snorted and huffed as it stomped Paul's innards into the dirt. The middle-aged man laid flat on his back, staring up at the elegant beast, its black, soulless eyes staring back at him as it heaved its weight once again onto the man's helpless body. The moose, with one final transition before its departure of the horrid scene, lifted its hoof high and smashed it into the man's crotch region, blasting his testicles up through his throat, popping them out of his mouth like a swollen uvula. What's up, guys? Iceman here. So this story is absolutely horrid, and I warn you. But before I get into it, I'd like to thank you all for your support on this channel. And if you will, like this video, subscribe to the page, and pull that bell so you're notified next time I post a video. And I'm not a bot, so like this video for the sake of humanity. And if you want to support me further, you can become a patron, linked in the description below. So let's get into this chilling tale. It didn't have to end this way. Paul Scrotumbore was an avid nature enthusiast. He loved kayaking the rivers of Yellowstone and was an amateur photographer, posting his photos throughout the years on Instagram and his private website, often conveying majestic shots of birds, moose, foxes, various kinds of squirrels, and bears. At 33 years of age, he was married with 3 children and ended up cheating on his wife with the secretary from the office building he shared with other businesses. He was burnt out from the everyday grind and wanted some excitement added to his life. All the more reason as to why he pursued a solo vacation in Yellowstone in order to unwind and contemplate his future, as well as add some photos of natural beauties to his resume. The moose finally left the horrid scene. Paul's destroyed body lay there desolate and afraid, regretful. He shouldn't have gotten so close to the majestic creature. He knew better. He should have used his long-range lens and kept a safe distance. But now, this. He began crawling back toward the trailhead to the best of his ability, his nuts nearly hanging out of his mouth from the wretched kicks and stomps from the monster. He choked and gagged as he pulled himself through the foliage. He was near Little Creek Trail, only a mile from the roadway, but the trauma he took prevented him from walking, and the grinding of his fingernails against the hard-packed dirt and rock was beginning to wear on him. Chills went up his spine as he recalled seeing at least 3 bears previously that same day. He took notice to the small creek only 20 yards away and decided to drag himself over to it as he was severely dehydrated. The loss of blood was getting to his head, and he knew he needed a drink. There, he managed to bowl his hands and take in several gulps of the fresh, cold flowing water. His body halfway in the creek, he lay flat on his belly, his legs rested on the solid ground, unable to move. He rolled on his back and looked up to the clear blue sky, gasping for air as the blood running down his forehead began to dry. His life flashed before his eyes, his house, his family, his wife, and the young woman he began recently seeing. He could smell the lavender lotion spread about her skin during their late-night meetups, the aroma almost entering his nostrils as she'd shuffle to the back seat of his Suburban in the dark County Park parking lot down the road from where he lived. But then, like a monster peering through the clouds of relief, he heard a snarl or a grunt. Paul's body turned stiff and still, his head lightly submerged in the creek bed. The bear approached him nonetheless and slowly crept up to where the man lay. It observed his blood-stained, torn clothing and several gashes near his shoulders and neck, and it lowered its massive skull and began licking the dried blood off his ear that was barely sticking out of the water. Paul's mouth was just above the water, and he would suck some in every time he took a deep breath, trying to remain as still as possible. The bear decided to set its massive paw on Paul's back and step onto the man in order to get a better angle at his neck. The weight of the creature crushed his ribs, and the man desperately gasped for air as it stood atop him. It placed its foot over Paul's skull and pressed it deep into the muck underwater. Paul gurgled and suffocated as the creature then clamped its jaws around his neck, but suddenly let go before biting down. It was as if the bear realized that the corpse it was manipulating was still alive, and it was set back by the startling discovery. Paul's face was still underwater, and he heaved it up with his neck and took a deep breath, the bear recounting every moment. Paul spun around onto his back in an effort to keep his face out of the water, and the monster gazed down at him, not knowing what to make of the scene, in which it just had a few fine tastes of blood regarding. He gazed into the black soulless eyes of the creature, and the creature gazed right back into his. Paul jerked his body, and suddenly the bear lunged at him, grabbing him by the shoulder and thrashing him side to side. It let him go and sent Paul flying in the air, 10 feet, and crashing into the rushing water. He struggled to sit up, keeping his head above the water level. The bear stared at him, as though shocked by the endeavor, almost as if it were acting in defense. Perhaps the sudden shock of the man being alive took the animal by surprise. Paul sat his ground and began yelling at the animal, "Hey bear! Hey bear!" And as though hearing familiar tones, the animal miraculously began backing away. Eventually it left the scene, and Paul managed to crawl himself out of the creek, where he passed out. Hours later, his body was discovered and flown to the nearest hospital, where he acquired rigorous surgeries and treated for his injuries. He came out of the scene alive, but permanently mangled. The young woman he was seeing broke things off with him, and his wife took on the role of a caregiver for the used-to-be adventurous man. Park rangers determined that the bear was acting defensively and was not predatorily attacking the man. Paul agreed to leave the animal alone, as he knew his bloodied carcass was simply inviting to any predator. He made a pact with his wife to never return to Yellowstone again. Jeez, what do you guys think about that story? It's not the first time I've covered one regarding a photographer, and I think in modern times especially, you see folks going out there getting real close to animals with their cell phones and this and that to post them online, only for things to sometimes, expectedly, go south. People get real close to the buffalo and moose, and it's just startling to me how they don't realize that these creatures can be equally as dangerous as the bears. Fortunately, in this situation, Paul's life was spared, and the bear was simply being an opportunist as far as I could tell. But it's important to study up on how to react when encountered by bears, because in general, they will act differently depending on your body language and what you do. There was an occurrence with Timothy Treadwell with a starving male grizzly, and it was the proper time of year where the bears were supposed to be approaching hibernation, but that particular bear attacked out of desperation, and it simply hunted down the man. Polar bears are also known to hunt humans on rare occasions. To my knowledge, it's not good to play dead with black bears, because they're generally scavengers and would love to take advantage of a situation if possible. And you guys might want to look this up a bit more, but to my knowledge, with a mother bear and its cubs, especially a grizzly, that's when you'd want to play dead, because in general she's just trying to neutralize the threat. But of course there are always the unusual situations, and this is one of them. But let me know in the comments what could have been done differently to avoid this situation. And stay tuned for this channel, as I'll be posting more bear attacks and so forth. So like the video if you will, subscribe to this page, and I'll see you soon with more chilling tales from the Iceman.